I seem to have to do everything manually today, if you know what I'm saying, or whatever they're trying to tell you guys. Welcome to the show. It's Housemarks Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Hello. How you guys doing today? Yeah, for some reason, I'm out of town for like 2 days and all my buttons die. It's just so sad. Hi, look at that. Look at this. Thank you. Yes, he does love Mountain Dew. It's his favorite mouthwash and the perfect addition to any baby's bottle from where he's from. Hi, what's going on? Like, subscribe, etc. You know what? There's so much awful that happened this weekend that I feel like right out of the gate I should show you something that'll make you feel better. Can I do that? Can I show you something right away that'll make you feel slightly comfortable? You go like, okay, we're gonna be all right. You ready? You ready for it? Brace yourself. Brace yourself. This is the I gotta tell you, for the bring it ons of bring it ons, this, ladies and gentlemen, if there could be a stupider take amongst magatry, I can't find it, and that's saying a lot, because god damn. Like, like, this is an Epic Times fucking breakdown of this thing. How long is this? This is like a 20-minute like sales pitch on this. There's no way we're diving into this today, because what a waste of time. But what a glorious little side piece right there. To just know that, like, just this should quell all that that idea that, like, they've got a plan, and if Trump dies, it'll be Vance, and he'll be worse, and all that shit that I keep hearing from everybody, which is just nonsense. Because, no, that's how bad it is. I mean, we got a deep bench on our side for real, and they're going, Eric, can you imagine being at that meeting? Like, there are, I'm trying to think of a dumber suggestion since some asshole at a big agribusiness company came up with, why don't we just serve rendered cow to cows? Which gave us, obviously, a bovine spongiform encephalopathy? Yeah. Yeah, mad cow disease. Like that, remember that asshole? I mean, we don't know his name, but that person had to exist. The person was like, I got a great idea. We could save money on feed by feeding pulverized cow back to cows. What could possibly go wrong? That guy who basically almost single-handedly created the spread of mad cow, that guy probably works for the RNC now. and they're like, hey, Chuck, you had that psycho dipshit idea back in the 90s. You got any new winners for us? How about we run Eric? So I feel like I gotta, like, just give that to you. Hi, chat room, the greatest chat room in the history of chat rooms. What about China buying soybeans from Argentina? Yeah, that's leading to Trump having to do another bailout of the farmers, which will go about as well this time as it did last time, if not worse. So, there you go. Now, let's jump into some of our clips today, because I got to get through some stuff. There's lots. Not the least of which is that Trump had a meeting with Democrats and Republicans and whatever. And long story short, it looks like nothing came of it. I know, surprise. But I think there was this, yeah, hold on one second. Let me see if I can find the coming out of it. Yeah, here we go. This is the post meeting with JDL Vance right here, coming out. There's Thune in the background, who is nearly the same height as him because he's 15 feet away.
We just had a very frank conversation with the Senate and House Democratic leaders.
A frank conversation.
Look, the principle at stake here is very simple. We have disagreements disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about healthcare policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function.
Those are not part of the budget that gets shut down, especially right away. Republicans have skated on this for a long time. It takes a while before the soldiers don't get paid, and they know that. They're trying to leverage the pressure right out of the gate. They've always used it because they don't give a shit because they know it takes a while for that to happen. Yeah, sorry the audio is quiet. It's just the nature of maybe I'll find a louder version. Give me 1 second. There might be a I mean it is outside, and by the way, there is something to sort of what's happening in Trumpdom, where they're doing a lot of quiet part, the quiet part quiet. Let's see. Speak after Trump meeting. Whoops. Let's see if this. See if this one comes a little bit louder.
Issue started, even though.
Yeah, okay. So let's start with the Democrats came out first. I'm going to see if the audio's any better on this guy. Apologies if it's a little quiet.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay. Well, we met with the president for the first time since all of these issues started, even though we have requested.
Can I say, like, what are these microphones for? Dear God, man. Okay, one more time. I'm gonna try and find one. Holy shit. You hope Tara's okay in Portland? No, Portland is long gone. It was burned down years ago, and everybody is just, you know, I guess that's the performance of there. I'm trying to find a louder version of it, CSL, if we have one. It's always going to be tough because these stupid setups. Oh, God. We're headed for a shutdown. There you go. Maybe. Yeah, man. Like nobody is using their microphone. Everybody's bogarting.
Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries stepping to the microphones at the White House. Let's listen.
We met with the president for the first time since all of these issues started, even though we have requested repeated meetings with Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, and the president. We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions. And I think for the first time, the president heard our objections and heard why we needed a bipartisan bill. Their bill has not one iota of Democratic input. That is never how we've done this before. When I was leader, we negotiated 4 times with Republicans, and we never had a shutdown. And so it's up to the Republicans whether they want to shut down or not. We've made to the president some proposals. Our Republican leaders will have to talk to them about them, but ultimately he's the decision maker. And if he will accept some of the things we asked, which we think the American people are for, on health care and on rescissions, he can avoid a shutdown. But there are still large differences between us.
It was a frank and direct discussion with the President of the United States and Republican leaders, but significant and meaningful differences remain. Democrats are fighting to protect the health care of the American people, and we are not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans.
Oh, by the way, hold on 1 second. Susie in the chat room is saying these two have been useless. No, they have not. No, they haven't. In defense of both of these guys, A, The Democrats are out of power in both, and they only have limited power legally in what they can do. Period. You want strength in democratic movements, you have to stand behind them for long periods of time. And everybody else's voters have to do it as well. This like namby-pamby back and forth of, again, Democrats protesting outside the DNC, but not Mar-a-Lago. That kind of shit is why we're in this situation, not because Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer are somehow weak. No. For the record. Again, until we have 60 votes in the Senate and 60% of the House, nobody on our side of the aisle has shit to say about what leadership can't do. Rail Guy says, Hal, you're wrong. No, I am not. Again, until the voters show up, this is meaningless. Any complaints you have with Schumer and Jeffries are with the voters in the last cycle. Why did I to honor CK on October 4th? Because he was murdered. Difference does it make? Does that change the healthcare debate? No. Does it maybe get you some goodwill with the Christians on the other side that are having this? Yes. Again, a pissing contest about nothing. Nothing.
Period. Full stop. There's a Republican-caused healthcare crisis that is causing hospitals and nursing homes and community-based health clinics all across the country, in rural America, urban America, small-town America, the heartland of America, and black and brown communities throughout this country. And that crisis is happening right now. And that's why we believe there is urgency to both keeping the government open, reaching a bipartisan spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, their economic well-being and quality of life, while also addressing the dangerous Republican healthcare crisis.
He laid out to the president some of the consequences of what's happening in healthcare. And by his face and by the way he looked, I think he heard about them for the first time. The closing
No doubt.
of rural hospitals. The fact that so many clinics are closing. And I don't know if he knew this before, but the fact that people will pay $4,000 more a year, $400 more a month, close to $5,000 more a year on their health care premiums if we don't do anything. And people don't know what to do. The average working family can't afford that. I told him how I met a mother who was crying to me because her daughter had cancer. And what has happened with health care, with what they have done, she's going to watch her daughter suffer and maybe die. And so he seemed to, for the first time, understand the magnitude.
By the way, this is why J.D. Vance is coming out and making the statement afterwards, because Trump isn't running any of this part of it at all. He's just outsourcing it to those guys.
Of this crisis, and we hope he'll talk to the Republican leaders and tell them we need bipartisan input on health care, on rescissions, into their bill. Their bill does not have they never talk to us. Thune didn't negotiate with me. Johnson didn't negotiate with Hakeem. And on the key issues, the Appropriations Committee, which has talked about 3 of the smaller bills, they're good bills, they said the appropriators couldn't agree and said kick it up to the 4 leaders. They still haven't talked.
And let me say, we're deadly serious about addressing the Republican-caused healthcare crisis because it's a deadly serious issue for the American people. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics closing right now. The fact that more than 20 million Americans are on the brink of experiencing dramatically increased premium.
Hold on. Rail Guy's throwing it back at horribly weak Democratic leaders are causing people to leave the party. You're wrong, Hal. No. We need strong leaders like the California governor. You'll get one if you vote, but it won't matter. In the interim, leaving the party or not voting for Democrats and allowing the Donald Trumps of the world and maggot politicians to take over these positions is not just the abdication or the take your ball and go home laziness of TYT. It's you're actively supporting it. This is not a lesser of two evils situation. It never was, but the abdication of the power of the vote, or this kind of like we're just not inspired bullshit, is why we're in this position. When he's talking about this is a deadly serious situation, he means it.
Copays and deductibles.
Jeff says Hal isn't hearing what these two are saying. No, I'm hearing exactly what they're saying. I am vehemently disagreeing. Believe me, there's plenty of people on our side of the aisle that do shows or are online that will feed you a line of bullshit that you can hold your, like, you can cross your arms and withhold your vote and throw in a Jill Stein vote or some bullshit, and eventually, you'll bring, centrist Dems to the table or something, so we'll get Medicare for all. Meanwhile, you've left the ground open to Donald Trump. I know exactly what you're saying, and I know exactly the defense that these people are making. I disagree. I think it's morally wrong. How about that? I'm not mincing words. I'm not half-assing this. Fuck off. It's horrible. It's nonsense. How people don't think they're tough enough? I don't give a shit what they think about toughness. They're in the minority because voters didn't show up. As much as maggots are getting what they voted for, Democrats who didn't vote or didn't show up or namby-pambied their way through the election cycle like it was a coin flip are getting what they asked for as well. Period. We have a responsibility in this situation. We, as Democrats. It's going to take you 4 cycles of voting for Democrats to get us back to a position where we can talk about weeding out the less than optimal Democrats. That kind of thinking is what gave Trump the SCOTUS. I don't want to hear shit from anybody about how the SCOTUS is going to destroy him and the SCOTUS is giving it. We sat back through multiple election cycles when you knew, like, RGB is ancient, when you knew people were going to be retiring and went, well, it's a chick, it's a lady running. I'm not sure. For real? No. No, 100 times no. If you need somebody to pat you on the head and tell you harumph and you're fine, there's plenty of places to hear that. I am not going to join you in that. Ever. It doesn't do anyone any good. And it leaves the most vulnerable people in society at the whims of Donald Trump. It's weaponized apathy. It's disgruntled and dismissed empathy, and I don't buy it. Horse shit. No. Never. I know exactly what these people are bitching about. I know exactly that they're asking for a quote-unquote fighter, and then you take their fucking gloves off and handcuff their hands behind their back by not showing up to vote or shit-talking Kamala or Biden during the last 4 fucking years as if there's a degrees of difference between Trump and Biden, but like there's degrees of difference between Trump and Harris. You think Harris would have ICE on the streets like this? You think Harris would have National Guard troops in the fucking street? You think Harris would talk about taking back Bagram fucking air base in Afghanistan? You think Harris would send fucking ships down to Venezuela to blow fishing boats out of the fucking water and say, trust me, bro, they had drugs on board? You think there's a degree of difference between them? Fuck off. Gross, silly, absurd, childish. Other than that, I have no opinion.
Because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which benefit working class Americans. And we pointed that out. I pointed that out. Working class Americans, their health care, that's what we're fighting to preserve, to defend, and to strengthen.
Thank you.
Yeah, and anybody who voted for Jill Stein or wrote somebody in or didn't vote in the presidential but wrote it down ticket or any of that hold your nose bullshit is directly responsible as much as if they had voted for Trump for Medicaid cuts and clinics being shut down. Own it. Be a fucking adult. Act like you intend to be alive in 20 years and you give a rat's ass what happens to children and old people in your absence.
Questions or not? No. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, but hell, what about a magic wand? Exactly. Couldn't we vote for, couldn't I write in magic wand? Jesus.
Was there any mention of a quarter CR?
All right, we were listening to.
By the way, they bring up the CR, and people bitched about Schumer and the CR. Here, these dickheads coming out. And the continuing resolution, which kept the government from shutting down, but also continued Biden's budget through the beginning of the year. The reason these clinics that are being shut down now because of this budgetary stuff didn't get shut down earlier in the beginning of the year is because we had a CR. Yeah, the idea that, like, especially people who either didn't vote or half-assed their vote or are worried about the congressional vote or the Senate vote in a state they don't live in as the solution. Please.
To watch this along with me.
Simalu says, bow to Jesus and repent your sin. It is behave better, Simalu. Be a better person. Stop doing the Jesus sales pitch and try to actually live the principles. I know it's impossible for you, but give it a shot.
This is the Vice President and the Speaker of the House and Leader Thune. Let's
We
listen.
have disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about health care policy, but you don't shut the government down.
Well, those disagreements haven't been worked out in the legislative process because you've literally cut them out. In previous situations where Republicans have threatened to shut down the government, Democrats have actually reached across the aisle in several ways. The Democrats were intransigent and wouldn't actually play ball. They were given room to, they were asked for their input on stuff, but they openly refused to, and that's why they drove it to because they thought they could lay it at the feet of the administration at the time and make everybody blame Democrats, which, by the way, fucking worked, even on our side of the aisle. The problem is this time around, because of the Epstein files and other stuff, people are going to blame Trump in this situation and J.D. Vance.
You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function.
Well, that's what you're doing. Right? Your differences of opinion are why you're willing you're not engaging with Democrats and allowing them for their input, so you're willing to shut down the government as well. Again, you require their votes, and yet you don't want to, in the Senate, by the way, only in the Senate, you refuse to reach across the aisle. That means if you're in power, you have more responsibility for that. It's why the Democrats always do, because there's real-world ramifications for this. But now, the balance of power being what it is and what the Republicans are trying to do, it's arguably better they're not allowed to implement some of these things than allowed to do it, and that the cost shows up on, in Trump's lap.
You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it.
This asshole, by the way, does not believe the government is essential. He is one of these people who believes that the government should, follows that whole, the government should be so small that Vladimir Putin can drown it in a bathtub, and that the federal government should basically be like a comptroller that asks the states for permission for everything until Trump gets in. Then he wants it to be a supreme executive monarch, but as soon as Trump isn't in, or he isn't in as well, or anybody else, especially a Democrat, is in, it should be as small as possible.
If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down.
Yeah, that's the part he brought up, that you guys didn't do that part of it. You didn't negotiate. You're not engaging the other party at all. That's why that's why it was smart for Schumer and Jeffries to come out and speak first.
In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say,
Jesus Christ, dude. That's your fucking analogy?
unless you do exactly what
James, what do you think happens when we die? Ask me at the end of the show. I'll fill you in. I'll tell you if you really want to know.
Senate and House Democrats want you to do. We're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now we have to remember they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care.
Hundreds of billions of dollars, 1.5 trillion. I guess the assumption is that the entire budget, the $1.5 trillion budget that they actually have to present as a budget for the government, because that's what you do, that a vast majority of it, or hundreds of billions of it, I'm going with 3. Otherwise, you say a couple hundred billion, right? So at least 3, probably all of it, goes to illegals for their health care. By the way, illegals that this asshole can't find. Literally, the number of deportations, the number of people arrested in the country for overstaying their visa and all that kind of stuff is down from under Biden, certainly below numbers under Obama. One would think if 25 million more fucking people than ever have existed as illegals in the country got into the country, they'd be real easy to fucking find, wouldn't they? You wouldn't have to chase 2 fucking guys down the street and find out one of them's a citizen. Right? And the other one doesn't have a criminal record.
While Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous.
Yeah, that's because that's not what they said at all, as a matter of fact. By the way, for all those people that are thinking that the Democrats aren't fighting, quote unquote, according to J.D. Vance, they're saying exactly what you want to say. Somebody says, is Hal done yelling at his audience? I'm not yelling at my audience. I'm yelling at members of the chat room who may or may not be honest brokers of information that represent a thought form I find pathetic and sad and wrong, morally wrong. So yeah, that crowd, but I don't know that qualifies as, quote, my audience. But I would say that if you're saying Democrats ought to fight, well, according to this dipshit, that's exactly what they said. Right? That's exactly what they, according to J.D. Vance, they came in and said, if you don't give us everything we want, we're shutting the government down. What more could you ask for?
We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American healthcare policy is broken. Well, we know that American healthcare policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office.
With what? Oh, right. Sorry. Has it been 2 weeks yet for Trump's healthcare plan that is cheaper and better and golden crusted and smoother and goes down easy and also doesn't leave a medicine-y taste in your mouth, and also has it comes in a gold foil leaf that's easily digestible?
But every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade.
By the way, what they mean is making sure that people who can't afford health care get it. He considers that broken. Not the cost of pharmaceuticals necessarily, which everybody works to bring down every time they're in office, and Trump is pretending he's bringing it down 1,000%. So apparently, Pfizer owes us all money or some shit. But what he considers broken is that we as Democrats keep trying to give healthcare to people who need it and can't afford it, like a bunch of assholes.
So if they want to talk about how to fix American healthcare policy, let's do it. The Speaker.
They have a plan. It's called the ACA. add a public option to it, and you're good for the next decade as people develop a functioning version of it that you can work the kinks out, you can do pilot programs within it and all that stuff. We have a plan. We passed a plan. The plan was unpopular at first and now is very popular. The only way they attempt to make it unpopular is by undermining it at every turn to try and make it more expensive and less functional. But let's be clear. What does that mean? What does he mean by it's broken? There is a Stephen Miller line of thinking in the White House that you can't save everybody and we're wasting money trying. Remember that whole story about Donald Trump had his nephew, I believe it was, had a kid who was on life support and had been born with massive disabilities. And Trump was like, why don't you just let him go and buy yourself a condo with that money? That's who's in the White House right now. That's the thought. I got to say, like, as much as, Schumer thinks maybe he heard it for the first time, right? Maybe. It struck some kind of, it hit a nerve or whatever. I don't necessarily believe that. But if it did, these guys are more committed to that idea than he is.
Would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together, but let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American.
Yeah, except you're not engaging with them. That's why you're at this point, shithead. If you were engaging, you can't promise, let's talk about it now that we know that you're going to go through with this. That's what he's talking about. It worked. What you're saying is that Schumer and Jeffrey's tactic worked, that as much as whatever Trump fucking said in there, this seems to be a signal that their ultimatum worked and that you're going to have to come to the table and you fucking know it. Let's talk about it. Well, but let's leave the government open. Well, no, the only reason you're talking about talking in the first place is because they're threatening a shutdown. They're playing hardball.
American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see. I'll let the speakers say a few words.
Thank you, Vice President Vance.
Meaningless. This honestly, this has nothing to do with the House. Unless if they sent a bill back up to the Senate that could get all the votes, the House could do something or whatever, but they're out of it. Anyways, at this point, it's really about, the Senate. It's the only place where we have any leverage whatsoever because they need 60 votes. Right. Alyosha. Right? The House is, we don't have the House. Even with our brand new member, which, by the way, will have enough crossover votes to release the Epstein files, we don't have, all the Democrats voting. There aren't any Republicans that would come over to the other side. Like people are, like he's saying basically in the Senate, why won't they come over to keep the government open? Because we don't want to use this as just leverage as to get through our priorities and fuck your priorities. He's blaming the Senate for not acting away when Johnson, that's how he runs the fucking House. If the House needed votes from Democrats to pass a bill, obviously Democrats would be in power, and if they wanted anything from it, they'd have to give a bunch to get, I suppose, right? But if there was a rule like there is in the Senate, that they have to have a majority of votes, like 60 votes to pass something in the House, this would be a whole fucking different conversation.
Thank the president as well. They showed strong leadership today. They invited the 4 leaders over here because the president is...
They? First of all, this, this is supposed to be normal, dipshit. I wouldn't like it, and I don't like it, even if there's just, I don't know if it's like lip service to it, but when a Democratic president invites the Republican leadership over to talk about stuff because they represent a segment of the country, like it or not, at least they go through the process of doing it and don't whine like a bunch of bitches about it while it's happening. You don't get points for this part of it at all.
Operating in good faith, and he demonstrated that very well. The problem is that Chuck Schumer and Leader Jeffries refuse to acknowledge the simple facts. Let's review what the simple facts are.
That Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they are trying to shovel through Project 2025 before Donald Trump has a massive stroke somewhere around Christmas. I mean, that's essentially it.
Vice President was saying, this is the common sense thing to do. This is the right thing to do. This is the simple thing to do. By way of review, the House is getting back to the way the regular appropriations process is supposed to work. 12 separate appropriations bills passed through the House Appropriations Committee, 3 off the floor. The Senate doing their work as well. All this in bipartisan fashion, by the way. They passed 3 bills in the Senate. Those bills don't match up exactly. So for the first time in years, since 2019, you have a conference committee that is being constituted between the House and the Senate. This is the way a bill becomes a law. They work out the differences.
Where they will basically turn the 12 into the 3 into 2 or 1, which goes back to the giant mega bills that they were always bitching about. Let's stop for a second and recognize that when the Republicans came in under Mike Johnson the first fucking time, that the idea was we want 12 bills. We don't want one or a split version of the bill. We want, at best we want 2. All of our priorities in the first one and all of your priorities in the second one. We'll vote for the first one. Maybe we'll bring the second one up for a vote if we fucking feel like it. They tried that, and Johnson was so fucking dumb, he didn't even check the drafts of the bills he was bringing, and he brought the mixed bill to the first mixed bill to the floor on the first one, so they had to vote on the second one. So fucking stupid.
All this is happening in bipartisan fashion. The problem is we've run out of clock. September 30th is the end of the fiscal year, so we need a little more time. So
tough shit.
What we did in the Republican majority...
you should have done your work earlier this year, I guess?
...is the right, responsible, simple thing. A clean, continuing resolution, a short-term, nonpartisan continuing resolution. It's only 24 pages in length. Leader Thune has a copy if you want to see the exhibit. There's nothing partisan in here. No policy writers, none of our big party preferences, because we want to do the right thing by the American...
Yeah, but they want you to put the cuts back in right now because clinics are being shut down today. That was the point.
People and allow more time for negotiation.
Mm-hmm. With who? Who are you negotiating with? Your fucking self? That's the point. What you're trying to do is punt your problem that's being caused by the big bill because they want the budgetary fixes that they want thrown into their thing to, like, through new debt to claw back some of the shit that was in the big bullshit bill and before the shit hits the fan. That's what this is really about.
Now, there's a reason that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have come out here, stomped the feet, saying that they can't go along with this. They're trying to bring in extraneous issues. They issued a counter proposal. You should go take a look at what they requested. $1.5 trillion in new spending that is unrelated to the ongoing appropriations process. They wanted to, as you said, restore taxpayer-funded benefits, okay? Hard-working taxpayers in America. They want to take your funds and give that for benefits to illegal aliens. They want to restore that because we got rid of it. They want to...
Yeah, that's the primary reason. That's the holdup. That's it. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Democratic counter proposal, 1.5 trillion. In a 10-year spending bill. Is that the idea? Let's see. As the joint congressional Democrats put forward a counter proposal to fund the government that opponents estimate would increase spending by 1.5 trillion over 10 years. Permanent extension of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act credits. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the extension will cost roughly $350. Medicaid, restoring $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts implemented earlier. Funding extensions, a 4-week extension of government funding, and then restrictions on the president's ability to unilaterally cut funds previously approved by Congress and Democratic policy writers. Yeah, what he means is Medicaid cuts. They're saying that effectively by restoring Medicaid to where it was, and then not arguing the what's fraudulent, what's not, what has value and what doesn't, that kind of stuff. That like Medicaid that would go to people who take care of unaccompanied minors, for example, in foster care and that kind of shit. That they want to use that like that's the vast majority of the cost, so they can lay all this other shit like so they can hide behind that. That would seem to be the push on this. The rest of it is the Affordable Care Act, because that's what they want to, they want to try and kill.
They want to prop up left-leaning media outlets. $500 million they threw in on top of that. $1.5 trillion on. By
the way, these are cuts that they made congressionally, like unilaterally through I think the big bullshit bill along party lines that are non-budgetary. Like put that back in the budget where they've got leverage. They don't even have leverage in the BBB, but they have leverage in this one.
A 7-week stopgap funding measure. We're not going to do that. They know we can't do that. And we never have in the past. During the Biden administration, there were 13 threatened shutdowns. The Republicans in the minority did the right thing. We kept the government open. We're simply asking for the...
Yeah, none of those came from you guys during the Biden administration. There were 13 threatened ones. Sorry, the threat was coming from who?
Democrats do the same. Again, I want to thank President Trump for the strong, solid leadership.
He slept through the whole thing, didn't he? He was asleep the entire time. Maybe they propped his eyes open with toothpicks. What do you think?
Listen to the arguments, and they just wouldn't acknowledge the simple facts. I want to thank Vice President here for...
by the way, simple facts aren't in question here. You can have a difference of opinion about priorities, but that's not a matter of simple facts. You can either agree with them or not, or you can come to the table and negotiate, or you could say they're 1.5 trillion. We're not interested in any of it, so fuck it all. Therefore, you got to give us your votes to keep the government open regardless, and we're not going to negotiate on any parts of it. And by the way, remember when people used to bitch about Democrats coming to the table and asking for like a third of what we need because they're afraid to ask for everything we want? Remember that big complaint? I'm sure everybody in the chat room, yes, chat room, you guys remember that whole conversation that we had year after year, which was that if you're going to negotiate, start well beyond what you need so that if you have to walk something back, you get what you want. Instead of start with what you want and end somewhere below what you need, right? People bitched about Democrats doing that. In this particular case, for the record, according to both sides of this argument, including the Republicans who were just in this fucking meeting, the Democrats came in with the full fucking list. Here's everything. We want all of it, or we're going to shut shit down. Now, you could say that's a negotiating point, or you could say that's the final line, but it's well beyond. They've obviously learned that fucking lesson. And again, credit where credit is due. Yes? Okay. Because shouldn't that matter? Does that matter, chat room? Does it matter that? Yeah. Because people used to bitch about that, and apparently they got the note. Okay. It just, maybe people just don't recognize good stuff unless you, like, hammer it. Like Trump's propaganda thing about his lies. Maybe the truth needs just as much help. Maybe the truth needs just as much hammering. How did you get an invitation to perform at the comedy show in Saudi Arabia? No, I'm not going back to Saudi Arabia anytime soon. After what happened last time, I've been once.
Showing his leadership as well. If the Democrats make the decision to shut the government down, the consequences are on them, and I think it's absolutely true.
Why? Wouldn't that be the result of the leadership? If the government gets shut down, by hook or by crook, it's the responsibility of the people that can make the moves to keep it open. If the priority is to keep it open, and that is as serious as at least coming to the table, and there are non-negotiable points and there are negotiable points, one would say you would jump straight to the negotiable points and reach some sort of bridge, I guess. But if everything you're doing is just to be a fighter and just for spite and the other side is evil, this is where you end up, asshole. This is the result.
Magic. We've never said that was a good...
Also, why the fuck are you talking? Honestly, the House is meaningless in this circumstance. Unless they're going to draft a bipartisan bill, which is never going to fucking happen.
idea. We never believed it is. And I want you to remember, when we voted in the House, we passed it out of the House. The House has done its job. We did that almost 2 weeks ago.
Right. Because you don't have a threshold that you have to meet to pass it. It's just fucking one vote. If you clear the number and you've got the votes just in personnel. And you barely got that shit through with your own fucking people. So the idea that Democrats have to hold the line for you in the Senate when you barely got everybody in your coalition in the House to sign on to this shit.
Every Democrat in the House except one voted to shut the government down. That is the record. And don't forget it. I'll ask Leader Thune to step in here.
Well, thanks, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're talking about. 24 pages. It's a continuing resolution to fund the government through November the 21st. I don't know where they're saying this is some huge partisan thing. This is something we do fairly routinely. And when the Democrats had the majority on 13 different occasions, they had the majority, President Biden was in the White House, we passed continuing resolutions to fund the government.
Yeah, by the way, every time you pass a continuing resolution is not a threat to shut down the fucking government. Biden actually had a fucking budget.
This is purely and simply hostage taking on the path.
Oh, okay. So J.D. Vance, they've got a gun to the American people's heads. These people, they're taking people hostage. The guy that Rick Moranis will play in the movie, it didn't have a violent analogy, unfortunately.
On behalf of the Democrats, the Republicans are united. House
That's adorable.
Republicans, Senate Republicans, President Trump. The House has passed a clean funding resolution to fund the government until November the 21st. It's clean. It is bipartisan.
And it helps us shut down all these rural hospitals so we can rid ourselves of these pesky rednecks that we have to get votes from all the time.
And it is short term. But it gives us enough time to finish the appropriations process, which is the way we should be funding the government.
No, actually, if you run the House and the Senate and the presidency, instead of the fucking leader golfing all the goddamn time and pretending he solved all the wars in the world and sending the military off to fucking Venezuela and yammering online all night long, you assholes should have handled the appropriations process earlier in the year. But this dickhead over here had to shut down his fucking House because to stop a vote on Epstein from happening for a fucking month. Seriously, like, this is the reason we're in a situation where there might be a government shutdown and where there's, it very well may have happened because of the intransigence of these dickheads anyways. But let's be abundantly clear. What has eaten up a shit ton of their legislative time, both in the House and in the Senate, and arguably within the DOJ and the White House as well, has been covering the Epstein shit up. That's why we're headed towards a government shutdown. That's why these assholes can't craft a budget or get their fucking caucus in line. Because they can't have conversations that involve Massey and some of these other folks because they won't resolve the Epstein shit, so they've got this giant entrenched line. This is all about Epstein.
So Republicans in the House, in the Senate, President United, they've passed the bill. This is sitting right now at the Senate desk. We could pick it up and pass it tonight. We could pick it up and pass it tomorrow before the government shuts down.
I don't know. How long would it take you to eat it?
And then we don't have a government shutdown. It is totally up to the Democrats because...
Yeah, but you guys could have done that a fucking week ago, I guess, and been talking this whole time and resolved some of these things. But you refused. Trump had a meeting before. Now that we're at the fucking deadline, and we got a fucking day and a half, as evidenced by, yeah, it's totally CSL. Johnson's not swearing the new rep in just to slow the fucking process. That's, and again, that's about Epstein.
Right now, they are the only thing standing between the American people and the government shutting
and the building of the Epstein ballroom
down. We're all in favor of funding the government. And this is something that's been...
Yeah, we're all in favor of funding the government as long as it doesn't do anything. As long as it can't, the Treasury can't track fucking Trump's crypto shit, and the IRS can't look into Trump's buddies who are on Epstein Island, and there no regulations apply to the fucking pollution coming from his buddies in the coal industry. As long as we love the government up and running, as long as it's like kneecapped and shackled. It's hobbled like it's in a fucking bed in the misery.
Done routinely 13 different times by the Democrats when they had the...
Yeah, because they came to the table and they negotiated things and they caught shit from their own side while they did it, but that was part of the process. They weren't cowards about it. And there were real-world ramifications in terms of voter turnout for them just doing it. But the cost to real human lives was protecting those people was worth it. Or at least, I guess we'd like to think so, because now Trump's in power, and the people who, took their ball and went home and didn't vote for Harris because of whatever gripe they fucking had, that handed it over to him because of these kind of things, because they had to reach across the aisle, because of this fucking illusion of monarchical power on either side in a democracy of all fucking things, has driven everybody back to their fucking corners and assumed that everything in the middle of the ring has to be a fucking fight. It's so lazy.
Majority. So it's to me, it's purely a hostage-taking exercise on the part of the Democrats. We are willing to sit down and work with them.
No, you're not. You already would have, shithead.
On some of the issues they want to talk about.
Yeah? Which ones? Say it. Say it. Like, why wouldn't you just say it?
There's the extension of premium tax credits with reforms.
The extension of premium tax credits with reforms. That would be on the ACA. So he's not invoking the name of the ACA. So the extension of those premium tax credits, that's because it helps fucking red states. Because red states need the ACA as much or more than blue states do. Otherwise, they'd have been able to get rid of it a long fucking time ago.
Happy to have that conversation. But as of right...
It's not a conversation. It's a negotiation. Asshole.
Now, this is a hijacking of the American...
Boo fuckity who? Hijacking? You have the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
American people. And it's the American people who are going to pay the price.
Yes, and you're the one who's handing them the bill.
Russ, you want to say a few words?
Sure. We want to keep this government open. It is not good for the American people to have the government shut down for any period of time. We will manage it appropriately, but it is something that can all be avoided. It can all...
Why now? Do you notice, by the way, this scramble, like these four fuckers in one place? You think they would be standing in this fucking driveway talking to the press about this shit if they didn't absolutely have to be?
Be avoided by accepting a reasonable position, which is what the House has passed and what sits at the Senate desk.
No, it isn't. Again, punting it while the cost cuts take effect and damage people's lives because of the BBB, because the old bullshit bill. That's what has to be addressed.
Which is to continue to fund the government with a short-term continuing resolution.
Also, by the way, this fucking piecemeal taco goddamn tariff policy in terms of the budget is the same. Like, how do maggots call this leadership? Do we have any? We've got to have some maggots in the chat, right? Besides the faux Christian dude who was posting symbols earlier. We've got to have a maggot in here, right? Are there any maggots in the chat? This is leadership. This is the most effective guy. This is the guy who knows business better than anybody else. This is the guy who's, bankrupt 6 times, but always someone else's money. Also Russian money through Deutsche Bank, keeping his properties afloat for a long time. Also Epstein's running buddy for 25 years. That this is leadership. This is you're down to the line, and you can't figure this shit out. You've already had one CR, right? Where's the budget? Where's the whole budget that actually can pass? Because again, that's part of it. You can't just shovel it through. They have, it's a representative government. You may not like who the Democrats represent, but they have a responsibility to their constituents, right? And you've got to meet them insofar as you need their vote, as we've done with with Republicans over the years, much to the chagrin of the Democratic voter. Because that's leadership. Because if you're saying this is the cost, this is what it will cost, American people will be harmed in this. If that's the reality, if you really believe that, then you have a responsibility to make sure it doesn't get shut down by finding a way to make it work. Leadership, thinking outside the box. I thought these fuckers were like, Jesus Christ, how can you prove that Trump's cost cutting will eliminate $1 trillion worth of Medicaid funding, so you don't have to cut people's Medicaid or Medicare off. You just know the price of it, all of it is going to go down. You don't have to pair people off of it or make people lose it, right? You shouldn't have to take away healthcare from people if you're going to lower the cost of it to almost fucking nothing, right? If you're going to make it that much cheaper, if Pfizer's going to pay people to take drugs, Jesus Christ, how are we not making money on Medicare? Explain that fucking fantasy to me. Good Lord. Norm says, how can the USA afford universal health care? No. But it can afford a two-tiered system. It can afford a public option. I've argued for a long time that states that have public options should be allowed to trade across state lines, so that if you live in some state, you can buy into Massachusetts plan or Washington State's plan, or if California sets one up and it's a nonprofit system, but any profit it does make goes into the infrastructure of that state, as opposed, just like the lottery pays for the actuarials of the lottery pay for schools and that kind of stuff. It'd be a similar thing. Instead of having one big federal system where a bunch of Republicans can come in every fucking second cycle because weak-kneed left-leaning independents and soft Dems all run for the fucking hills, or the crust, screams about everything and then disappears and doesn't vote or votes Jill Stein, so that Republicans could come in every 8 years and knife the plan so that it doesn't do what it was intended to do and cost more, so they can blame everything on it. If states did it and you could buy across state lines, no matter what state you were in, it would benefit those states, and it would give an impetus for other states to start their own. That would be nonprofit, and any profits taken in obviously would go to the state. I'm saying it would work. Could it go back to public hospitals? No. Because the problem is it would work in certain areas, but it wouldn't be ubiquitous. You wouldn't have universal health care. What you would have is, just like schools, you have areas where people give a shit and they would have hospitals. And then you would have quote unquote food deserts and, and hospital deserts and medical deserts, because Republicans don't give a shit and there's a bunch of fucking RFK adjacent anti-vaxxer shitheads who live in the sticks who only come out to vote against healthcare for their neighbor every fucking 6 years. That's why. You want a ubiquitous program? Make a public option available that is either internally within the government, managed by that's effectively a nonprofit, but any costs that aren't paid out stay in the government and are used for other things, just like the Social Security Trust Fund would be. And you could leverage that debt against something else if you needed to in an emergency. But better if states could run their own single-payer systems, and then anybody in another state could buy into that state if their state doesn't have one. Therefore, helping to fund that system in the state, and that you could, if you don't want to buy into a for-profit company's version. You'd have that option if you want to, but if you didn't want to do that or you didn't trust it, you could do it you could buy into California or Washington State or Massachusetts system. And it would give, like I said, more states an impetus to create their own system for their constituents. And if it was superior, you could buy into it. You'd have choice in those single payer systems. And so no regime could roll in and undercut the federal version and fuck it up like they keep trying to do with Social Security every time, because you'd always have a state option that you could go to. Yes, kind of like what Massachusetts did, but it would be available across state lines. So that, by the way, also for-profit companies would have to compete with the state companies in quality of care. I mean, that is so much more doable than trying to get like an enormous program passed through. Like they can't even get a fucking CR passed, and people like on our side of the aisle can't fucking stand in line long enough to get 60 fucking Democrats to vote at all, much less, ones that would vote for this. If you can't stand there and make sure that we build up a blue wall every fucking time until we have enough people to pass something like this, the idea that we're going to have Medicare for all or that it's anybody's fault that we don't, besides the voters, is fucking dumb. It's our responsibility. If you want anything like that, you're going to have to go well beyond the window of convincing everybody first, and as far as the electorate goes, and you're going to have to elect more people who are for it than you need. You can't get to the point where you need any votes from the people who are actively against it and then bitch that you don't have it. Are you fucking kidding me? So how do you do it? You fucking stack. It's incremental. Just like a real healthcare program, just like your diet and your exercise and raising a child and learning anything, it's incremental. You build on what you've done. And if you have a fallback because it was ineffective or it didn't work or it broke down or it couldn't support its structure or it wasn't it was headed towards insolvency and one thing, and you had to pare it back. You at least have built on it, which is, by the way, what the ACA is doing over time. It's exactly what Obama was doing at the time, and everybody who fucking bitched about it at the time, because it wasn't Medicare for all right out of the fucking gate, were a bunch of assholes. Because if you ever want a chance at a universal system that is either single payer from the government, you're not going to get there in one fell swoop. You're going to build it. It's going to take time. It is going to have to be stress tested. With a country of 340 million people, with the number of freedoms that we fucking have, from, like lack of regulations on fucking coal mining and the cancer clusters that it creates in the South, and fucking the fact that you have the right to basically poison yourself in your diet and all that, and you have no responsibility for it, so everybody else is on the hook. You just want to eat shit and smoke and all that kind of stuff. And we had a single payer system, everybody else is on the hook for your behavior. Like, you're going to have to find a way to make that manageable and sustainable so that people don't resent it and try to shut it down. The NHS in England is always in danger of being shut down or limited by the Conservative Party when they get in power, not because they're just dicks and they hate it, which is probably true anyways, but because there's a huge section of the population that resents the fact that they have to give care to people who don't care for themselves. And that's what the Republicans are using right here. Like, that's just what fucking JD Pants over here fucking said. They want to give money to illegal aliens. They want to give health care to illegal aliens, right? That's what he did. That's what he's trying to gin up, that feeling. That's exactly what he's using to manipulate the electorate. So you got to handle it. If you want what we're talking about, you have to build that system to be resilient against attacks like that, or they'll just undercut it at every chance, and it'll never get a chance to get off the ground. the responsibility in these situations, the true caring aspect of governance and actually doing this stuff takes a lot longer. None of these problems are solved with a single fucking bill. And if you don't believe me, check women's rights and suffrage. Check the Civil Rights Act and minority rights in this country. Did the passing of those bills into law solve those problems? Did it eliminate the people who would try to undermine them and destroy voting rights and all those kind of things? Of course not. Even in the situation where there is a giant leap forward, you're still patching it and building on it and protecting it forever. So, for the record, somebody said the Democratic Party has had ample time to get things done, but they have been more concerned about meeting in the middle. Look where that got us. I'll tell you where that got us, Jose. 25 million people have insurance when they wouldn't have. The child tax credit brought more children out of poverty than at any time in history. And it was so popular and so functional when the Democrats put it in that the Republicans had to leave it in. It's not only in the big bullshit bill, it's also in their CR. That's what the Democrats have brought you. Everything you take for granted, S-chip, SNAP, public education funding, the removal of lead pipes from the fucking water system that is happening all over the country right fucking now. That's what Democrats have brought you. Rural fucking broadband. Internet everywhere. You know these rural hospitals that are being shut down, that everybody's bitching about it? They wouldn't have existed in the first place if it wasn't for Democrats. That's what Democrats have brought. What's walked it back and what's required a meeting in the middle is this sort of namby-pamby expectation that everything comes magically and that you can just win by fighting. That the louder you get and the meaner you get, the more the other side will be convinced to get scared and vote for what you're doing. And it doesn't work that way. It never has. That's why the ACA still exists. The Infrastructure Act, it was one of the greatest pieces of environmental policy that's been passed in decades. It's resilient. Trump's trying to shut down parts of it, and he fucking can't. And Democrats spend so much fucking time just maintaining the programs against attack from the Republicans that the idea that we're going to move these fucking things forward and make them even better, it becomes less of a priority, even though it does happen every fucking time. Every time. The consequential nature of what Biden passed and what Obama passed is nothing short of historic. But there's a whole lot of what have you done for me lately, which would be perfectly fine if we had 60 Dems in the Senate, I'd say 65, and 60% of the House, and the fucking presidency. Then, yeah, what have you done for me lately after 2 fucking cycles? After an 8-year run where we held our coalition together and we actually did it, yeah, you'd have a reason to start stomping your foot and going, what the fuck? But that's not what happens. And by the way, it happens to Republicans too. They have the same fucking problem. It's just when they get in there, they know it, so they're bum rushing a bunch of shit. The Democrats bum rushed ACA through. They got it as fast as they could in the very beginning of Obama because they knew they were going to be, there was a narrow window because the fickle American voter, including Democrats, would hand over power to the opposing party in the midterms because that's how it always works. Because everybody goes, it didn't happen fast enough. It's not everything I wanted. Right? And that's exactly what happened. And yet, still, Obama got the fucking ACA passed and rescued the auto industry and brought us back from the edge of a depression, which, by the way, resulted in a number of dead Americans equal to fucking COVID if we'd have hit a depression. So, like, again, this idea that if you can't recognize the victories that we have had enough to go, they're worth protecting, and you don't recognize that it's going to take a prolonged effort to get especially enormous changes like Medicare for all or anything even close to it, if you're not all in to make that happen over the course of a multitude of voting periods against, like, fervent opposition, then how do you ever expect any of those changes to really happen? I mean, it's goofy. It makes no sense. And by the way, Republicans are having the same problem with the maggots. Yes, if you want Dems to be stronger, stop tying their hands. Absolutely. And if you're going to protest anyone, protest the people who are actively against the shit that you want. Not the people who are trying to get it done, but don't have the power to get all of it done, so they're getting as much of it done, and somehow that's a fucking betrayal. But the person who actively wants to scoop up fucking kids that are getting cancer treatment and deport fucking 4-year-olds, and you're like, I don't know, Kamala Harris, I'm tired of big. There's no fighters. I'm not inspired. Jesus Christ. These fucking TYT, Hamas Abi, Jimmy Dore, faux-gressives every fucking time. It's just fucking lazy. And it's and I gotta say, it's dismissive